Tonight, we bring you a special investigative report on one of the most consequential events of the 21st century.
The United States and Israel are launching airstrikes across Iran.
Confirmed killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. But this story isn't just about a man dying. It's about a web of delayed confirmations, missing visuals, the ghost of Osama bin Laden, a state that went silent before it screamed, and the enormous questions that linger in the rubble of a compound in Tehran. Let's start from the beginning. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched one of the most ambitious joint military operations in modern history, striking 24 provinces across Iran simultaneously. Compound of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in the heart of Tehran. Within hours, Israeli officials were briefing media that Khamenei was dead. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in a measured but pointed statement, said there were many signs that Khamenei was no longer with us. Careful language, not a direct declaration. U.S. President Donald Trump was far less restrained. He posted on Truth Social declaring the 86-year-old one of the most evil people in history was dead. But here's where the story gets complicated. Iran's foreign ministry spokesman immediately said Khamenei was safe and sound. Iran's own Tasnim and Mir news agencies insisted the supreme leader was steadfast and firm in commanding the field. Reuters, the world's most trusted wire service, initially reported that Khamenei had been transferred to a secure location outside Tehran, not confirmed dead, not confirmed alive, just moved. The world held its breath. This is the question millions were asking online within hours. If Khamenei was dead, where was the proof? It is a legitimate journalistic question, and here is what we actually know. According to Israeli Channel 12 and AFP wire reports, a photograph of Khamenei's dead body was recovered and was shown privately to both Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. An unnamed senior Israeli official confirmed to Reuters that the body had been located. But, and this is critical, that photograph was never released to the public. Why? Several reasons, all documented by intelligence and conflict analysts. 1. Operational security. The strikes were still ongoing. Releasing a body photo in the middle of an active multi-day military campaign could inflame crowds, trigger mass mobilization, and complicate ground-level intelligence operations inside Iran. 2. Political messaging. The U.S. and Israeli governments wanted Iran's own state media to confirm the death, forcing the regime to publicly announce the collapse of its supreme authority. A photo released by Israel could have allowed Iran to call it a fabrication. Waiting for Iran's own confirmation was strategically more powerful. The Osama bin Laden comparison is flawed. Here's why. Many on social media drew comparisons to Osama bin Laden, whose body was never shown publicly after his 2011 killing in Abbottabad. But the situations differ fundamentally. In bin Laden's case, the U.S. burial at sea and suppression of images was intentional, specifically to prevent his grave from becoming a shrine. In Khamenei's case, Iran itself confirmed the death. Iran's state broadcaster IRIB on the morning of March 1st declared that the supreme leader had reached martyrdom. Press TV announced 40 days of national mourning. Iran's own Fars news agency, affiliated with the IRGC, reported that Khamenei's daughter, son-in-law, grandchild, and daughter-in-law were also killed in the strikes. When the regime itself confirms the death of its own leader, the absence of a foreign-released photo is not a mystery, it is a strategy. Reuters did not fail to prove the death of Khamenei. Reuters reported, citing sources, that the body was located. Subsequent confirmation came from Iranian state media itself, the only source with the authority and the motive to either confirm or deny. Yes, Khamenei did receive a funeral. CBS News and The Washington Post confirmed that the funeral ceremony was held at the University of Tehran. Tens of thousands gathered in Engelab Square in central Tehran, mourners dressed in black, many in tears, holding photographs of the supreme leader, chanting "Death to America" and "Death to Israel." An interim leadership council was announced at the funeral itself, comprising President Masoud Pezeshkian, Chief Justice Gholam Hassan Mohseni Eji, and senior cleric Alireza Arafi. But the funeral was not the grand state-choreographed spectacle of historical precedents. When Ayatollah Khamenei died in 1989, an estimated 10 million people flooded the streets of Tehran. His body was displayed for public viewing. The mourning was so intense, so overwhelming, that the coffin was nearly torn apart by the crowd. Khamenei's funeral was different. The country was still under active bombardment. Airspace was closed, the war was ongoing, and crucially, a significant portion of Iranians were not mourning, they were quietly celebrating. Verified footage circulated showing Iranians in Isfahan, Karaj, Karamshah, Shiraz, and Tehran's own Pardis neighborhood cheering, honking horns, and lighting fireworks. One man was filmed toppling a monument to Ayatollah Khamenei in southern Iran. The funeral happened, but it happened in a fractured wartime country, a country divided between those who wept and those who exhaled. This brings us to perhaps the most important question of all. Iran's history does not suggest silence in the face of such a blow. When IRGC commander Qasem Soleimani was killed by a U.S. drone strike in 2020, Iran launched ballistic missile strikes on U.S. bases in Iraq within days. When Hamas attacked Israel on October 7, 2023, Iran's proxy network ignited across the region. Iran has never been a country that absorbs a hit and stays quiet. And this time, Iran is not silent. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps immediately pledged severe and decisive punishment. Iran launched ballistic missile barrages at Tel Aviv on the night of February 28 itself. Hezbollah fired missiles and drones into northern Israel. Iran struck U.S. military bases in the region, claiming hits on 27 American installations, including claiming falsely, according to CENTCOM, that the USS Abraham Lincoln had been struck. Explosions rocked Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha, and Manama. Iraq and Pakistan erupted in protests. The UAE ordered schools to close nationwide. Iran's response has been total, if chaotic. What Iran has not done, what it arguably cannot do right now, is launch a singular, decisive counterstrike. Its top military commanders are dead. IRGC Chief Mohammad Pakpour, killed. Defense Minister Aziz Nasirzadeh, killed. Intelligence chiefs, killed. Defense Council Secretary Ali Shamkhani, killed. President Trump claimed 48 senior Iranian leaders were eliminated in the initial wave of strikes. The regime is not silent. The regime is bleeding, and it is retaliating while bleeding. The feared full-scale war is, in many ways, already underway. It is just happening in the fog of simultaneous multi-front chaos, not the clean, declared warfare that history textbooks describe. Khamenei ruled Iran for 37 years. He was not just a political figure, he was the theological anchor of an entire system of government, the Vilayat-e-Faqih, or guardianship of the Islamic jurist. Without him, the system faces a constitutional crisis it has never had to navigate under wartime conditions. An interim leadership council has been announced. The Assembly of Experts, the 88-member clerical body tasked with selecting the new supreme leader, must now convene in the middle of an active war, with key members potentially displaced from Tehran. Analysts at the Council on Foreign Relations have noted that killing Khamenei is not by itself regime change. The IRGC, they stated plainly, is the regime. The question is whether the IRGC, now leaderless at the top, fractures internally or consolidates into an even harder military theocracy. History in this region rarely chooses the clean answer. What we know for certain tonight, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the man who ruled the Islamic Republic of Iran for nearly 37 years, is dead, confirmed by his own government, mourned by his own state broadcaster, and buried in a country that is still at war. The questions around the body, the photograph, the delay, they are legitimate questions, and journalism must ask them. But the evidence from satellite imagery of his destroyed compound, from his own government's announcement, from the thousands weeping in Engelab Square, paints a picture that is, by any standard of verification, conclusive. The supreme leader is gone. What rises in his place will define the Middle East and perhaps the world for the next generation. This is a special report. We will continue to follow developments as they emerge.